Welcome to this video. This video is going to be called 10 Seriously Overrated Guitar Players. What do you mean by seriously, Andy? What I mean by serious is this is serious. I have done this at another point, but it was a bit silly, I thought. A bit too silly. Now, this one is going to get silly, but some of the guitarists I picked on there is really just to get on people's nerves. It was a guitarist that I personally didn't like. There's a whole bunch of stuff. But I sat down over the last few days and I thought, who are the most really overrated guitarists? So, for those people who don't understand the English language, I will now explain what overrated means, right? If I say a guitarist is overrated, they could still be good. You could still like them and you could still appreciate their talent. But what it means is their talent level is here, but the world sees them as being up here, right? So I'll give you now an actual practical example so you know what we're dealing with here, because this is the way I've done this one. If you go to the Rolling Stones list of the 500 greatest guitar players and you look at the top 100, that list is saying that out of all the millions of people that have picked up a guitar, including me and including some of you and all the people playing in all the various bands through history, all those millions and millions of guitarists, people who play classical guitar, jazz guitarists, all the guitarists in the whole, imagine them all now, millions of them, millions and millions and millions of guitarists. They've got millions of guitarists. You understand? Millions of these guitarists in the world, right? That list is representing the best 100, right? So on that list, when you go through that list, there's some players where you go, well, they're a really good player. And obviously they're there because they're famous. This is what happens. You get famous and you get on that list. But some of them are reasonably good guitar players. They did some interesting things. And also, because they were in famous bands, they had an opportunity to innovate. So that is where you give them a big tick. You know, and also people really love them. So that's all really great. So there is something about those. Just being on that list in the top 100 does elevate you against the great unwashed that all play the guitarists like you and me and all that type of stuff. Unless somebody is watching this like Richie Blackmore or something, which if you are, hello, Richie. So, I say Richie because he was so bloody low on that list. Anyway, that's the whole point, isn't it? He's underrated on that list, you know. When you get a list and you're looking at people like John McLaughlin and they got Neil bloody Young above him. Rock and roll is here to stay. At number 10, we're just going to start off straight easy, just so you can get in the mood for it, you know. So, you ready? This is a really easy one to do. We just go straight in and we'll go, yeah, that's pretty obvious, isn't it, you know. And it's so obvious that I wonder whether he is actually overrated. But I'm going to start there with him. He's only at number 10, so I'm only saying he's a little bit overrated. Some of you will think he's really overrated because, again, you will not understand what the word overrated means. It doesn't mean you don't like them, right? So, at number 10, I have, from Oasis, Noel Gallagher.
And I'm an arrogant bastard. Seriously.
Now, what are we dealing with here? Oasis are one of the biggest bands in the world because they're so big and loads of people listen to them, especially kids who know nothing about guitar playing. They listen to someone doing a guitar solo. They have no idea what is hard or easy on the guitar. This is all really obvious stuff. This is where we start, just to lay the groundwork so we know what overrated means. And they listen to it, they think, well, he's doing a guitar solo. He's got some bendy sounds. It sounds really cool. I bet that would be hard to do. And they think he's a really good guitarist. And then he comes out the arrogant fellow that he is. And he's very opinionated and he criticises everybody. Oh, I'm better than the Beatles. I'm better than the Rolling Stones. I'm better than this and I'm better than that. And he criticises everything. And for people who are idiots, they think, oh, well, if he's criticising stuff, he must know what he's doing.
A good shovel up as well the night before.
So I think that sort of arrogance combined with the fact that their audience really does not really know anything about rock bands and never listen to any rock, not even Led Zeppelin or any of that lot. You know, this is a mainstream rock band and that was Oasis's great strength. at the time in the mid-90s when most people who were like going to football matches, just sort of working class of England, were listening to sort of dance music and stuff like that. They left rock bands behind many years before, and they actually brought that audience back in. And that audience has stuck by them. And there's a whole generation of people who think that that's the greatest band. And then because they get into Oasis and then get into Stone Roses, and then they go back and listen to Joy Division and The Cure and all like that. So they never come across a great guitar player. They don't know what a great guitar player is. And Noel Gallagher then captures a certain audience. Now, this thing is going to happen over and over again. It's right, really, and this is why I enjoy doing this, because I know I'm being an elitist now. You know, I do know about music, and a lot of you know about music, and we listen to incredible guitar players, and we know what great guitar playing is, or do we? Do you really have to have a ton of chops to be the greatest guitarist in the world? Well, for me, right, when you're playing a pop song like Oasis and you decide to pull a guitar solo in, you could either do what Carlos Santana does on those massive hit records and do a guitar solo, which might be quite straightforward, rock pentatonic, but has your own signature sound and has a touch that no one's got before, and that every note is suffused with the emotional fire that's in your soul. Well, Noel Gallagher hasn't got that. They're workman-like guitar solos. All the bends are slightly out. He presses the guitar down a bit too hard. It's all doesn't sound quite in tune. Maybe he's got better as the years gone on. I don't know what he's like now, but in Oasis, he was all right. His functional guitar playing he's not a great guitarist. So, number 9. In the 1980s, guitar playing all went up a notch, right? All these guitarists were coming out. Suddenly, heavy rock and heavy metal guitarists had listened to people like Al Di Meola and John McLaughlin. They'd taken all that on board, Alan Allsworth. They'd all got into that. And before you knew it, you had guitarists like Uli John Roth, Randy Rhoads, Eddie Van Halen, and then John Sykes, and then Yngwie Malmsteen, and then your Steve Vais and your Joe Satriani's. And before you knew it, the technical ability of rock guitarists had gone through the roof. And they needed a gig, didn't they? They all needed a gig. And so they all headed over to whatever thrash metal band, or most likely some 80s hair metal band, and they joined those bands. And they all had incredible guitar players. Do you remember? You know, you put a Winger album on, or Poison, or whatever it is, or you know, there's guitarists like George Lynch and all these, you know, Rat and a whole bunch of bands with all these incredible guitar players on. And the music was fun-lovey party music, wasn't it? It was a great laugh, that stuff was. Nothing heavy. Then Guns N' Roses come out, and they just take over. And they are better. They're better than these hair metal. They're doing all that, you know. They've got the wrist array going on. They got the headbands, you know. They're doing all that thing that they do, you know. And they're great. I love that first Guns N' Roses album. I love it, but you know what I'm going to say?
Sticky Fingers, Let It Bleed, Beggar's Banquet, and Exile on Main Street. Those 4 records in a row are pretty much the best, you know, my favorite music of all time.
Slash then becomes the guitarist, and Slash is a good guitarist. And when I first saw them on MTV doing Sweet Child of Mine, and they got to that guitar solo, I thought it was great, but it wasn't great because of Slash's guitar solo. It was great because of the arrangement going on behind Slash's guitar solo. Anybody that had the ability to bend a few notes down the bottom of the neck and then run up and bend a few notes at the top of the neck couldn't have pulled that one off, I'm afraid, because it's what's going on behind it. Any musician knows that. Now, for guitarists who are that good, they're probably quite impressed by Slash's chops, and he had a little bit of chops, but he was not in the same league as a Marty Friedman or a Jason Becker. He wasn't in the same league as any of those players that were playing in any of those rock or metal bands. There's a whole raft of them that were absolutely incredible. You know, George Lynch, Steve Lynch, you got Vinnie Moore. They were all doing stuff, weren't they? Absolutely incredible. Slash was not in that league, but the thing was, he had a top hat on and he couldn't see his eyes, and that was quite cool, wasn't it? And that was what it was really about. He'd got a very rock and roll mouth, that bloke, but then he got the dark sunglasses and the hair over his eyes. When I was a kid, we used to have a TV show called Hickory Dickory, I think it was, and there was this mop character in it, and he had like hair, and then he had like this red nose sticking out. So all he had was just a red nose and this long hair. This one at number 8 is a guitarist I really like, and I didn't know whether to put them on, but I have. At number 8, I've got John Frusciante from the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Feeling the sliding wheel.
So Mother's Milk had come out, so I went down to the shop and I looked at Mother's Milk and I opened it up, and in there, John Frusciante thanked a whole bunch of guitar players and musicians, and he named his influence. I thought that's really good, and so I bought the album. I thought John Frusciante's guitar playing on Mother's Milk was really great, really fluid out there, really interesting player. And then as time went on, he starts to strip down his guitar playing, and all that virtuoso roots that he does have, he starts to work against. Now, he's since gone on to become one of those sort of stripped down, like, you know, a sort of guitarist that I sort of champion. You know, he's not going for perfection. He's going for more feel and vibe. Now, he's a very strange character that didn't seem to enjoy being in the biggest band in the world and having all that money. So he decided to ensconce himself in the world of heroin for a number of years, nearly dying at one point. But then he seems to get fed up with that, and he's come back into the band. And he's still there, although he lost all his teeth and half the skin of his arms from various horrible illnesses he got from being a drug addict. And that's given him a little bit of, you know, he's dark, and, you know, whereas the Red Hot Chili Peppers are all fun-loving and jumping about, aren't they? You know, he's the dark one in the band. Now, I'm going to put my neck out because I like Frusciante. I like the Red Hot Chili Peppers, especially in the early days. And I always thought this guy can really play the guitar. I know I can't really hear it on these records, but he is doing some interesting stuff. There's some cool riffs there, and there's some real sort of dirty blues guitar. But, you know, I know he can play that stuff if he wanted to. Well, I don't think he can now. I think Frusciante is a little bit overrated, and I think it's a little bit of the Emperor's New Clothes. At number 7, right, I've got Johnny Marr from the Smiths. Whoa! Oh, Andy, you big jazz snob. How can you put Johnny Marr down? He's such a great guitar player. I know he's not playing like Alan Holdsworth, but the thing with the Smiths is those guitar parts are so imaginative. And that's, you know, it's like a lot of the time, the hook in the tune's coming from Johnny Marr. Well, great, yeah, good. Like every other guitarist in the world, right? Just because he plays a little bit of finger picking here and he's got a few arpeggios in it, he doesn't strum open chords. We're supposed to think he's a genius. And these guitar parts are good. He created unique guitar parts, as did Andy Summers, as did The Edge. They all do it. Why are we singling out Johnny Marr? I tell you why, because at that time, he had a bunch of shoegazy bands that just had a ton of distortion and then strummed open chords, and we were all supposed to think they were brilliant because they were Sonic Explorers, bloody Thurston Moore, Sonic Youth. You know, even I, as a pretentious teenager, said I like Sonic Youth, but I didn't really like them. I just said them because I thought it was cool to like them. I'll say it now, right? But then I look at Sonic Youth. I mean, Thurston Moore. Shall I scrub Johnny Marr? Because he's a better example of it. Thurston Moore. Anybody can do all that. Well, maybe not. I don't know. I wasn't prepared for Thurston Moore. It just popped into my head. But again, you know, I hate these upper middle class educated kids who've got posh parents that work in universities or work in the music business, and they have it all thrown. They're brought up to be these little sort of anarcho-communists, and Thurston Moore's one of those. I don't think Johnny Marr is, to get back on the subject in hand. But with Johnny Marr, what you've got is like, why can't he make friends with Morrissey? Why are they so bloody special?
If it is the case that he's pro-Farage, and then, you know, there would be a sort of slight kind of drawback in that, I think.
This is the Emperor's Clothes of all rock music that came in after punk. Right, we're supposed to think it's great, even though it's not great. Because what we can't have are musicians that make the audience feel inferior because they can't understand it. Right? So in the 80s, you had two things going on. You had really crass party rock bands with amazing musicianship in, right? Or you had these super cool blokes stood there with their all back coat and their long coats on, looking all moody and playing stuff that anybody can play with a few open chords. And then when a guitarist could actually attempt to do this, and this has been the same thing all the way through. Look at that bloke who played in Stone Roses. You know, he could just about hand the guitar solo. And then everyone thinks he's the bee's knees. At one point in the 90s, there's this guitarist called Steve Craddock, and he was in the band Ocean Colour scene, right? And he was getting picked up by Paul Weller. He was playing on everything. Because he could play some guitar solos, everyone thought he was the bee's knees. It's the Emperor's clothes. I had this band at the time, full of a load of sort of drugged up hippie types who could really bloody play. We listened to Mavish Orchestra, we listened to Weather Report, we got all that down. And at that point, we had some sort of trippy Hawkwind Gone thing going on. And we had this guy that would blow a didgeridoo and create these modes. And then we were just coming, playing on tom sixes over the top. And somehow we got the support slot with bloody Ocean Colour scene with this Steve Craddock. So we get there, and they have to set up first. So he puts all his guitars out. We're supposed to be really impressed because he's got about 30 guitars. And he's got his Les Paul, he's got his SG, he's got his Strat, and he's got them all there. Brilliant. And then my mate gets up, Paul, and he's got like a 40-quid guitar that he's stuck Danger Mouse stickers all over. He's got his hair down to his things, all matted, you know. And we look like real. I mean, I look more respectable now, but I didn't then. Right? And these guys are all thinking they're the bee's knees, right? And then we start to sound check. And they saw my mate Paul, who was standing somewhere between Richie Blackmore, Django Reinhardt and Alan Holdsworth, if you can imagine putting all that together. And he starts playing. I look over this Steve Craddock bloke, and his jaw's like... Megadeth had Marty Friedman on guitar. What a ridiculous guitar player he was. But who did Metallica have on guitar, lead guitar? Kirk Hammett.
Because I came from nothing, you know, for the weak. Right. I'll say it. There were a lot of unsavory characters, and if they saw, like, you know, covered up with a garbage bag and make it look like it was just a bag of garbage, it's, you know, I feel the love. And, you know, there's all this talk about extraterrestrials. They might be clued into our music too, you know? And that's even more trippy to think about. Really does.
Now, Kirk Hammett, because Metallica are the biggest rock band in the world, right? They've gone down as being like this incredible band. Now, everyone wants to have a go at Lars Ulrich because, of course, Lars Ulrich didn't even play the drums when they started Metallica. He's learnt it as he went. He was the energy source of the band. We know he's not that good. But by the time they do Massive Puppets, he's playing some decent drumming. But Kirk Hammett, because he had lessons off Joe Satriani, everyone thinks he's a proper guitar player. I don't think he is. I don't think he's a very good guitarist. He just does not have the sound of someone who's competent. You could tell he's worked out his guitar solos. He's pulled them all out. His sound is always really weedy and thin. He does all the most obvious things every now and then because the song... If you've got a great song, and they are great songwriters, Metallica, that's why they're so much bigger than Anthrax and, you know, Slayer and Sepultura, because they ended up writing really good songs, and that's what they got going for them. And in that respect, Kirk Hammett is a good band player. But as a guitarist, I don't think he's that musical. And this really got bored out when he brought his solo album out. And I went and checked it out, and I thought, here he is. He's got a deal. Everyone's going to buy this. He said it gives me a chance to really play the guitar. And he listened to it, and I can't hear the music in it. I'm being harsh on the bloke, and I like Metallica, and I feel mean saying it. But to my ears, he doesn't sound that great. He doesn't have that natural ability that sounds like you can play the guitar with ease and the music's just coming out of you. So I'm not going to knock Kirk Hammett much. I'm going to save it up to number 5. Now, there's a whole bunch of guitarists that could have occupied this space, but I'm really going to have a go at him because I'm sick to death of hearing about him. And this is Neil Young. Neil Young, right? Now, he can write a good song. Even I can hear that. If you put Harvest on, there's some good songs on there. Let's just take the songwriting out of it. As a singer, he's awful. Really horrible, whiny little voice, right? Now, the thing that bugs me is when somebody goes, I do like Neil Young's guitar playing. Like, I do you? Yeah, oh yeah. I know it's not polished, but that's what I like about it. It's really raw. He just plays from what he feels. He just feels it, and I love it when he does that. He doesn't care. He just puts it out there. I would have thought you'd like that, Andy. Right? Now, I don't believe in this. Right? Neil Young's guitar solos just sound like pants to me. They are pants. Proper big Y fronts, and they've got skid marks in them. That's the sort of pants that he is. He's Poo Pants McGee. That's what I would call him. Not Neil Young, right? Not Neil Young. I would call him Poo Pants McGee. I'd say, Poo Pants, what the hell are you doing there? Strangle out the guitar. What's it done to you? He hasn't harmed you. What are you doing that for? Wouldn't it easy to just pick up a cat, mic the cat up and strangle that? Because that would sound even better than what you're doing. And he'd turn around and go, you can't say that to me, with his weedy voice. He's American though, isn't it? You can't say that to me. I'm Neil Young and I'm a brilliant player and I write good songs and I play for the heart. I don't know what this voice is I'm doing. It's not Neil Young, is it? How do I imagine Neil Young talking? I know he sings high up, but I don't think he talks high up, does he? Because he strains when he sings. Sounds like he's on the toilet with constipation. Imagine someone on the toilet with constipation whilst trying to strangle a cat that's been mic'd up, and that's Neil Young. And we're supposed to think this is great. Now, I'm going to tell you some truth here on this stupidness, right? Because he doesn't even deserve a decent bloody appraisal, Neil Young does. Can't stick it. It's like a con to me. It's like a massive con. Now, this is the con in terms of the guitar playing, the guitar solos, right? If you want to put across emotion on your instrument, okay, that requires some level of skill. So it doesn't mean the worse you are, the more emotion. It's not like emotion technique. The technique is there for you to be able to express emotion. All right. So what I mean by that is that if you gave someone a trombone and they never played the trombone and said, just play anything on it, and they'll wait, why I can't play? Just blow into it and move the thing up and down randomly. And what will come out of it is your emotion. Right? No, it won't. Anybody that's got a logical brain or a pair of ears, or those two things working together in a reasonable order, that hasn't been conned by a bunch of pretentious middle-class music critics in the 1970s, 80s that made them think that this is good guitar playing because it's raw and visceral, right? It's not. There are raw and visceral guitar players, but they have a touch on their instrument. Kirk Hammett has a touch on his instrument. He has there's an architecture there. There's something great about it. I knocked Thurston Moore earlier on it, but I mean, he has got it. He's able to do these great big blocks and control it, and he's worked at it. Neil Young doesn't sound like that. Neil Young just sounds like a great big shit. Oh my God, what is it with Neil Young? What do people like about it? Rocking in the free world. It's the downfall of all music. It's what I hate in music. And yet we're supposed to bow down to it and think it's really bloody good. Right, just go and listen to country music. That's the same thing, but by decent people. And listen to Kenny Rogers. He can write a decent song, although he probably didn't write them. But he tells a story. There's something that Neil Young doesn't sing. Rocking in the free world. Why does he want to rock in the free world for? Old man from the old world of old rock. Neil Young. That's the worst thing. He never does kneel. He probably can't kneel down to save his life. And if he did kneel down, you know what he'd be kneeling down to do? You know, to pray that he can get a little bit more money out of his catalogue. Well, you know, obviously. And Young, he's not young, he's old. He was all right when he was young to be called Neil Young. What else can I criticise him on? Don't like his haircut. He's got long hair and it was too frizzy, wasn't it? He needs a bit of hot oil treatment on it. Always looked a bit too frizzy, didn't he? Don't like him. I don't like Neil Young. He's probably a nice man. If I met him, I'd probably get on with him. But I don't like him. That's the bottom line. What have we got at number 4? At number 4, we've got, from The Who, Pete Townshend.
How would you fix them?
With glue. No, I did. I used to glue guitars together.
So you break them, then glue them back, and then...
Yeah.
As a guitar player, he has been swept up in that group of guitarists that includes Jimmy Page, Ritchie Blackmore, Jeff Beck, Jimi Hendrix, all those British... I know Jimi Hendrix wasn't, but all those London-based 60s guitarists that sort of really invented rock guitar. And Pete Townshend gets swept up. But why? Why? Why does he? You know, the guitarists of the Kinks never did. So why did Pete Townshend? Why has Pete Townshend been... And I tell you why. It's because of the bloody idiots making the judgment, you know. They think if you jump up and down a lot and then just you do that thing with your arm like that, round and round, you know, that makes you a good guitar player. Think about it. If you can play the parts to your guitar whilst making your arm go round and round in a circle like that, if you can play the parts whilst doing that like that, if you can play the parts to your song, how hard do you think they are? I bet Johnny Marr couldn't play his parts whilst doing that. Of course he couldn't, because they're harder than Pete Townshend's guitar parts because they're so simple and basic. He hasn't got a particularly nice guitar sound. He just basically slashes his way through. And then, you know, somehow that seems to fit in with the busy, all over the place, Busy Bee playing of John Entwistle. Then Keith Moon's bonkers drumming. And it all comes together. It's genius. I love it. I love them. I love them. But when it comes... I mean, this is why he smashed his guitar up. Not surprised he smashed his guitar up. You know, can you imagine being... You know, you're Pete Townshend, you're playing in London, you got Jeff Beck there, you got Clapton's over there, you got Jimi Hendrix coming on the scene, and then you've got to do a guitar solo. What are you going to do? They're all looking at you. What are you going to do when you're Pete Townshend? I'll tell you what you're going to do. You're going to have a strop and smash your guitar up. That's what you're going to do, just to get out of it. I like baked beans. Don't know what it means. To have some baked beans on some toast. Better than a Sunday roast. We're cool and mod like. Right, I forgot what I was doing there. Right, these top three are this is the holy trinity of overrated now. At number 3, I have John Mayer. So, there were these people in America called black people. And they had it rough. But because they had it rough, they need to express themselves. And they express themselves with a form of music called the blues. And the blues totally feeds into commercial recorded music in the 20th century and becomes the underpinning songwriting approach which just busts music open. And this is dark, raw music. This is people singing about being hobos, sleeping on a floor. You know, they're talking about drinking bloody canned heat or whatever they do with the, I don't know what blues people do, but it's all bloody dark and there's a darkness and a danger to it. And they walk around almost like sort of mythical characters, blues musicians do. You think of T-Bone Walker, or you think of, think of Robert Johnson, you know, sold his soul to the devil on the... This is what the blues is. It's dangerous, isn't it? Then, in the 1960s, a whole bunch of white people in America, middle-class people, went to art college and go, I really quite like listening to the blues. Do you want to be listening to? I've been listening to Blind Lemon Jefferson. Oh, I like the name of that, Blind Lemon Jefferson. I know, because my name is Sebastian Pooey. And I'd rather be called Blind Lemon Jefferson. But you're not blind. Yes, but I own a lemon. So that is basically the blues then subverts itself through these sort of middle-classy types. No problem with that. It creates rock music. We all like it. We all know it's there. Now, none of these people can play the blues like bloody T-Bone Walker or, you know, Albert King. Or Freddie King. Or B.B. King. But not Billie Jean King. They could probably beat her, but they couldn't beat her at tennis. And that's the way the world is. This is the wisdom you get here. Anyway, that's by the by. The point is that they're not as good. And then suddenly, we get Clapton, then we get Peter Green, and we get a whole bunch of blues guitarists come out. And they're very, very good. There's a whole raft of them. And I like them very much. Right? I like them very much. Then guitar rock guitar. I'm having to do the whole history of why John Mayer is the worst thing in the world, right? You've got to understand this. Then rock sort of starts to develop, and the guitar moves on, and the technique comes in, and you start getting all the John McLaughlin's, the Al Di Meolas, and then you get the metal guitarists, and they're all doing that type of stuff. And then it goes all avant-garde. You got drum and bass and jungle. Imagine you go through rock history. There's like a montage going on now, right? And then you arrive at a certain point in the late 2000s where all the guitar players are listening to Marty Friedman and Jason Becker, and they're listening to Richie Kotzen, and that's all gone like that. I'm that generation. We were all listening to that. And then Robert Cray comes out. And Robert Cray is playing proper blues guitar with edge and dirt, and it's like just feel. And everyone goes, "Oh, have you heard Robert Cray?" And then Stevie Ray Vaughan comes out, and he's a white bloke, but he looks terrible, doesn't he? He's got some 80s purple suit on with a cowboy hat that doesn't match, right? But he's just screaming on the guitar. And then Jeff Healey comes out, and he can't even see like this. He doesn't even know what he looks like. He's got a mullet. Do you know you got a mullet? I don't even know what a mullet is. And he's playing the guitar on his lap like that, you know. And he gets up and he walks around like this, stamping around like that, and then he falls off the stage and you can't see anything. Absolutely amazing. These guitarists are amazing. You go, "Oh, these white guys, they can play the blues." Well, you know, I mean, Jeff Healey probably didn't even know if he was white or black, so even in that position, it doesn't matter, does it? But these are great, and I loved them. I bought all those albums. Then Johnny Lang comes out. Now, Johnny Lang is like this great guitar. He comes out and he can play the blues a little bit. He's not got quite the bite of these Steve Ray Vaughan types, but what he has got is cheekbones. And he invents, Johnny Lang, he's not even got the credit for it. Cheekbones blues, white blues guitar, right? Johnny Lang created it. It's a genre, right? And then the race starts to happen. They're all trying to get there. Now, here in the UK, you get the likes of Ainsley Lister. There was a guitarist just up the road from here called Ian Parker, and I was his drummer. I played with Ainsley Lister. Then they moved on to the girls. You know, and I played with Ian Parker, I played with Joanne Shaw Taylor, and this whole thing emerges. Now, what I'm saying is, there's all these players in this circuit, and they're all very good. They're all very good. You know, some of them are a bit bland, like Joe Bonamassa. He's a bit bland, but he can really bloody play the guitar. And then you have people like Walter Trapp, who's lived it. You know, they have lived the blues life, and they just come out and it's just pure dirt. There's all these different players out there. Then you got guys like Bernard Allison that really, they just go right back to the source. You know, and I love them all. I even like Samantha Fish when she comes out, Samantha Fish. Because she's got the little short skirts on, she's lovely legs. I mean, in terms of, you know, she's replaced the cheekbones with the lovely legs. And also with Samantha Fish, I like the fact that she's kept the fish motif going, you know, really coming from sort of like Walter Trout. There's a whole bunch of, fish-based blues guitarists out there, and I've got a theory about this. I won't say them all. You can put them down below, you know, but there's a whole bunch of them if you start thinking about it. Fishy themed, you know, and Samantha Fish just goes straight for it, that. Why is it the net result when you pour all this in the 20th century, all that blues in, you pour it all in, and what comes dripping out at the end of it? Bloody John Mayer. Isn't that just a testament to how awful capitalism is? I mean, I like capitalism. You know where I come from. But when I think about it like that, is that the best we can come up with all of that? We take all of that and chuck it in the great big sieve, and who comes dropping out at the end of it? Bloody John Mayer. It's just awful. It's like if IKEA made a blues musician. If you get a jazz guitarist like Scott Henderson, maybe John Schofield or Mike Skirt, if you got somebody who can really play and say play the blues, they're going to take your face off. Robin Ford, they're going to take your face off. The best blues guitarists are jazz fusion guitarists. That's the bottom. It is now, if you really want to hear it. It's just been all sublimated, right? John Mayer can't play bloody jazz. That's the bottom line. At number 2, I've got Prince.
Is anyone up for a game of basketball?
I love Prince. Prince is an incredible singer. He's an incredible songwriter. He can play all the instruments. He's really, really great. He writes great songs. He can dance. He can jump around. He's a beautiful man, albeit very small. He's got a horrible tone, right? He hasn't got much control over the notes, right? His bends are all a bit out. He's a bit fumbly in his picking, right? It's not that pretty. Now, at some point, and I think with Prince is, as I've got older, I've realised he's a bit, I think he was a bit of an egomaniac, and that's why he controlled everything. So they're doing My Guitar Gently Weeps, aren't they? They're all up there playing it and singing it, all the greats up there. And he steps forward, and you can tell he's showboat. He's taken over. You go, I don't care what the arrangement is rehearsed, I'm going to do a guitar solo now. And he goes through a perfunctory guitar solo, but it just sounds a bit fumbly. It's got some nice moments. He can convey some emotion. There's something there, but it's not that good, really. Honestly, I promise you, it's not that good. What? Yeah. Then I've left the door open. You wait there, you lot. Bloody hell. We're at number 1. Killed it. You've killed it, Andy. You've killed it. So at number 1, the most overrated guitarist in the history of mankind, definitely, without a doubt, is the one that's going to upset the most people, which is why he's number 1, because so many people think he's great. And they're going to have all their reasons for thinking he's great. But he is just a good guitarist. He's not a bad guitarist at all. He's just a good guitarist. And I'm going to explain to you why I think he has come into this position, right? And it is, of course, Mr. David Gilmour.
I wasn't gifted with enormous speed on the guitar, and there were, years when I was younger when I thought I could get that if I practiced enough, but just wasn't ever really going to happen. And some of the influences on me, like even the Shadows back in the 60s, Hank just playing a tune.
Yeah,
Gilmour was in there. If he wasn't hyped up. If nobody ever mentioned him to me all the time and say, oh, Gilmour. I mean, Rick Batto calls it the Gilmour effect. I mean, this is how big it is, isn't it? Gilmour is the one. And he stands there almost like as an emblem for average guitar players to justify what they do. That is the truth here. There's nothing wrong with Gilmour's guitar solos. If you like them, you like them. They are great. Right? He does a similar type of guitar playing as Mark Knopfler does. And in fact, when Pink Floyd had gone rubbish, when they did The Wall and then the Final Cut, right, and we all wanted them to do a great Pink Floyd album, Dire Straits came out with Love Over Gold. You know that album? And side one of that is greater than any Pink Floyd album except for Dark Side of the Moon. And the thing with Mark Knopfler, and I've had a go at him, but the truth is, Mark Knopfler can really play the guitar. He's a monster. I know this, It's like I can't play the riff to Money for Nothing. I can play the riff to Smoke on the Water. I can play the riff to Immigrant Group Song. But I couldn't play the riff to, it's like mad Chet Atkins picking with all these things and strings. I can't do it, I mean, Knopfler's great. Knopfler's great, right? It's not my thing, but he can't half play the bloody guitar. And if you drop Knopfler in on a Pink Floyd session, right, say, get Gilmour, just move out the way, put Knopfler in, it would be incredible, right? Now, you got to remember, by the time they got to The Wall, he'd run out of ideas. They got so much money, they sat there, with all these amps, all these engineers, and they go, I can't really come up with guitar today. Well, who's a good guitar player? We can just get one of those good famous guitarists, Steve Lukather or Lee Ritenour. Well, Lee Ritenour's quite good, I quite like him. And then, Lee Ritenour, do you want to come in and Pink Floyd just sat in the room and burning up like 50,000 quid a day at the moment? Do you want to come in and play some guitar solos that they can then get some inspiration off, which means rip off? That actually happened. This is what we're dealing with Gilmour. Now, the reason why, so my basic point is that even when it comes to blues guitarists, even when it's white blues guitarists at the same time, there's a raft of guitarists out there. Like any of the guys out of Lynyrd Skynyrd would be better. Any of those guys will be better at it. Mike Bloomfield, Killam, there's a whole bunch of these guitarists out there there's nothing special about Gilmour. he would probably gesture to some sort of manservant and go, "Can you please remove this person from my vicinity?" And I would get taken out and thrown out onto the road by him. And if we went back to the feudal times, he would have probably dragged me into his square, and within his square, he would have probably tied me to a post and then humiliated me in a number of ways. Right? You hear that? My battery's running out. I have to stop now.
Hi, this is Andy Edwards, and you're watching my Andy Edwards Clips channel. This is not the main channel, it's another channel. And so if you want to watch my stuff, but shorter, for people with a shorter attention span, so it's basically like the main channel, but the videos are shorter, so it's really the best bits, you know. So if that sounds like your type of thing, please like and subscribe and do all those things to make sure you are aware and available for when I stick out something which is short and sweet that you might just like. Thanks.